In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
Let's talk college football. It's time for the Sports Page Summer of College Football, presented by Buddy Gregg RVs and Motorhomes, our daily preview of teams and conferences around the country for the upcoming college football season. Find Buddy Gregg RVs and Motorhomes on their Facebook page, their website at buddygregg.com, and follow them on Twitter at Buddy Gregg RVs. Now, let's take a full conference look at the Big Ten.
To help us with that, you heard him coming in from break, talking about the front seven on defense for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Big Ten blogger for ESPN.com. Brian Bennett joins us here on the new Sentinel Sports Page. Hey, Brian, Vince Ferrara, and Evan Woodbery. How you doing this morning, Brian?
Doing great, getting ready for some football. How about you guys?
Well, we're here actually at Neyland Stadium, so that really gets you fired up when you make the walk in and you're hanging out here at the stadium. But I know you're ready. Fans are ready. Let's start out talking about Ohio State. When we played the clip of you and you know, really breaking them down with the video previews that you're doing. Talk about this Ohio State team. You talked about the expectations of wanting a national championship, but in your mind, how legitimate of a chance does Ohio State have to win a national championship?
Well, I think anytime you think about teams that can win a national championship, the very first thing you got to look at is the schedule. And Ohio State has a very, very good schedule for trying to get to a national championship game. They don't really play very tough non-conference games. Their toughest game is going to be at California, a team that's rebuilding a little bit, has a new head coach. So they really should sail through the non-conference at 4-0. You know, the toughest game in their division is Wisconsin. They get that game at home. So they're really the toughest game of the year is going to be the last one at Michigan. So this is a team that has a very good path to get to the Big Ten championship game and possibly go undefeated for a second straight year. Now, it's never easy, obviously, to go undefeated one year, much less two in a row. But they have a lot of talent. Most talented team overall in the Big Ten. I think it's fair to say that. Braxton Miller, a guy finished number 5 in the Heisman Trophy balloting last year and was really just figuring out how to be a quarterback last year. Should be a lot better this year as a passer. I think the offense is going to get better. It's going to be very explosive. They led the league in points scored last year. It should be a lot better. The big questions, of course, are on defense. Only one starter back in that front seven, but they've been recruiting like gangbusters. Some big time players coming up. As freshmen and sophomores, they're going to fill in. I think there'll be a little bit of adjustment period there for that defense. But again, that early schedule is going to let them kind of work through some problems, and I think by the middle of the year they're going to be really tough. And this is a team that I think will be in the national championship race most of the year.
Brian, based on the recruiting that you alluded to and what Urban Meyer's staff has done, not just in the traditional Midwestern area, but really across the country recruiting since they got on there, is there a sense that they are building kind of a Big Ten juggernaut that could rival what Alabama's done the last several years, just as far as consistently winning the SEC or their conference title and also being in the national title picture on a year after year basis?
Well, it's interesting to say that. I would say that's true for Ohio State and Michigan. Right now, Michigan ranked number 1 in the recruiting rankings for most people. They've just been really bringing in all kinds of great prospects the last few years under Brady Hope. And so it's been a real kind of super war between Michigan and Ohio State on the recruiting trail. They're both bringing in big-time classes, and a lot of people expect both those teams to really kind of separate themselves from the rest of the Big Ten, kind of forming a new kind of Big 2, and I guess it'll be Big 2 Little 12 with 14 teams starting next year. So a lot of people expect that because the level of talent is really going up in Ohio State and Michigan. They both seem to have the right coaches at this time, and it's going to be interesting. Michigan needs to prove it a little bit more. They haven't won a Big Ten title in a long time. They lost 5 games last year, but I definitely think those are going to be the two superpowers in this league, and they're both going to be in the same division starting next year. So that's going to be really fascinating to see, and it's going to be quite a battle between those two every year.
Joined by Brian Bennett, Big Ten blogger for ESPN.com, as we preview the Big Ten Conference here today on the new Sentinel Sports Page. Brian, just real quick, elaborate if you could on Michigan. I know they have a left tackle in Taylor Lewin that a lot of the NFL folks really like. Talk about this Michigan team a little bit and how good you think they are.
Yeah, it's a really interesting team, with Devin Gardner playing quarterback now full-time. He came out obviously last year with 5 games to go, took over for Denard Robinson who got hurt, and that just totally changed the entire complexion of that offense. They were suddenly able to throw the ball downfield, looked like a legitimate passing team, which before that they'd basically been relying on Denard Robinson to make incredible plays, and he was very good at doing that. But when they played some of the better defenses, and we saw when they played Alabama, we saw when they played Notre Dame, they were very limited. So I think having Devin Gardner there and his ability to throw the ball downfield really makes this a dangerous team that can score a lot of points. They have some questions on their offensive line besides Taylor Lewan, who's a first-team All-American and probably a top 15 draft pick next year. But in the middle of that line, in the center and both guard spots, are going to be 3 all-new starters. Some guys that are sophomores that were well regarded as recruits, but are kind of brand new. And they didn't run the ball well outside of Bernard Robinson last year. They bring in a big-time recruit in Derek Green. Fitz Toussaint is a former 1,000-yard rusher, but had a bad season last year. So they really need to fix that running game. I think the defense is going to be solid. It always is under Greg Madison and Brady Hoke there. But they did lose their best playmaker in Jake Ryan, a linebacker who had an ACL injury in spring. They hope to get him back maybe in November. But I don't know how effective he'll be. So this is a team with a much easier schedule than last year. They don't play Alabama and Notre Dame again. So it's a team that definitely could contend for the Big Ten title.
Brian, I'm wondering now in Ohio State's division, the leaders division, is it pretty much Wisconsin or nobody as far as someone that could challenge them? And how realistic is it that Wisconsin could challenge them for the title, especially given that they have to play their game at Ohio State?
Yeah, I don't think Wisconsin's the only team that could really challenge them now. Obviously, Penn State is still on probation, so I think that they could play a little bit of a spoiler role there. They still got some talent, and Bill O'Brien's a really good coach, so I think they could maybe pull off some wins. But obviously, they can't go to the Big Ten title game no matter what happens. So I think Wisconsin is definitely the main contender in that division. This is a good team. I mean, this is a team that returns a lot of players from last year. They did lose Monty Ball, but they've got some good experienced quarterbacks back there now. The running game should still be good. The defense should be good, led by Chris Borland, who's an All-American type linebacker. And the big question for them, obviously bringing in a new head coach, and Gary Anderson did really just work magic at Utah State. Did a great job there. And I think he's a really good fit for Wisconsin. But it's going to be some new schemes on different sides of the ball. They're going to kind of gradually switch to a 3-4 defense from a 4-3, and we'll see if they have the personnel to run that. I think this is a team that's going to be in every game. They've got a good schedule outside of, they got to go to Ohio State early in the season, and I think that's going to be the game that decides the leaders division, and it's going to be early in the year. And they also have to go to Arizona State. Other than that, their schedule really, they should be favored in every other game. So they could easily be a 10-2 type team without a whole lot of trouble.
Brian Bennett from ESPN.com, Big Ten blogger, joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports page. Hop over to the other side with the Legends division. Talk about Nebraska and Northwestern. Are they sort of the next tier in that division behind Michigan as contenders?
I kind of think all three, Michigan, Nebraska, and Northwestern, are kind of even at this point. And we saw that last year when all three teams played. They were very close games. Northwestern lost to both Nebraska and Michigan, but basically had them beat in the fourth quarter. It took miracle comebacks by Michigan and Nebraska to beat Northwestern. And that's a team that won 10 games last year and beat Mississippi State in a bowl game. So, and they bring a lot of people back. So I think Northwestern is very good and underrated team. They got an All-American at running back and Vendrick Mark, and Pat Fitzgerald's really been recruiting well there. Nebraska's a really interesting team because it's a team that's been, 9 or 10 wins every single year under Bo Pelini, but just hasn't been able to get over that hurdle to win a conference championship, to win some of those big games on the road. They got destroyed in the Big Ten championship game last year by Wisconsin, got embarrassed at Ohio State early in the year. This is a team that's going to be, one of the most explosive offenses in the country. Taylor Martinez, a senior, fourth-year starting quarterback, running the show there, can run. It really improved as a passer last year. They've got a lot of good weapons at running back, wide receiver. I think they could easily score 35, 40 points a game. The problem is on defense. They lost 8 starters off that defense last year, and defense wasn't very good to begin with. And they have a lot of young guys up front, particularly on the defensive line. That's been a real sore spot for them in the last couple of years. So how quickly they can get up to speed, I'm not sure. But, again, we keep talking about schedules, but, they play UCLA early in the year at home, and that's going to be a big game. But other than that, they really should be 6-1 at worst going into a showdown game against Northwestern the 1st of November.
Brian, we've talked about some of the teams competing for the top and switching to the bottom. The one team that stands out to me in a lot of the predictions is a lot of the very bleak predictions for Iowa. And, if this turns into a disaster-type season where, we're talking 3, 4, 5 wins, Kirk Ferentz has been a survivor there, but how long can he survive, and what's the future of Iowa football and their outlook for this year?
That's a great question what the future is there, because this is a team that was, riding high a few years ago. They made it to the Orange Bowl and had been in a couple of BCS games, and it's just really steadily declined over the last few years, and then ending with last year's 4-8 season. I don't think they were as bad as what they showed last year. They had a lot of injuries, particularly on the offensive line and at running back. They just weren't able to do anything on offense, and they really lacked playmakers on defense. My big concern with them is they still haven't, found a lot of playmakers, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they haven't been recruiting all that well the last couple of years. So they just seem to lack, some of that difference-making talent. But I do think the offense will be better this year. They have a lot more better health now on the offensive line at running back. I think they'll get back to that power run game that they really like there. And I don't expect them to go 4-8 again, but I think it's possible they could go 5-7, something like that. And as far as Kirk Ferentz goes, I mean, the guy's making $3.5 million and he's under contract until 2020, and there's no buyout. So that's why he has job security there, no matter what happens. I mean, unless Iowa really wants to swallow that paycheck, and that would be a whole lot of money for a school like Iowa to pay a coach to go away. I don't see it happening. There are a lot of grumblings around the Iowa fan base right now about the state of the program, but they signed Kirk Ferentz to probably the least school-friendly contract in college sports history, so I don't think he's going anywhere unless he wants to.
Brian, I've seen increased expectations and win projections for Indiana this year. What do you think about the Indiana Hoosiers?
I like Indiana and the direction that team is going. This is a team that when Kevin Wilson came in there 2 years ago, he just started playing true freshmen right away and did it a lot last year too. So they ended up having like 17, 18 starters back. Only lost really 3 players off last year's team. They made some steady improvement last year. And what they really have going for them is a top-flight offense. Wilson was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, with a lot of their good teams there, and he's brought that passing attack to Indiana. They led the league last year in passing yards, and that was with juggling some quarterbacks because of injuries and guys who had never played at the college level before. So and they got all those guys back. They've got probably the best receiving core in the Big Ten. This team can score a lot of points. It's going to be a really explosive offense. It's just a matter of, can they stop anybody? They haven't been able to do that in the last few years. They get a little bit better talent, a little bit more athletes on the defensive side of the ball. Some guys who have been a little bit older now. I don't think they're ever going to be a great defense or maybe even a good defense, but if they can just be mediocre, and hold teams to 24, 27 points, they got a chance to outscore a lot of teams. So it's a team I think that has a chance to make a run at a bowl game. Its schedule's a little bit harder than it looks, probably. When you look at it closely, they got to play Missouri at home. That's going to be a tough game for them. They got Navy, which is always kind of hard to prepare for, and then they got to play some of the best teams in the Big Ten from the other side of the division. So it's not going to be easy for them, but I think if they play the way we think they can on offense, they have a chance to get in there and get 6 wins into a bowl, and maybe pull off a big upset or two in Big Ten play.
Brian, I'm just going to quick hit these last 3 teams we haven't touched on and just get a super quick summary thought from you on them. Start with Purdue.
Yeah, new coach and Darrell Hazel. I like him a lot. Did great stuff at Kent State. A team that doesn't have a lot of great talent on the defensive side, I don't think, especially a linebacker. And so I think they're going to have some problems and a really difficult schedule. I think it's going to be an adjustment period. I like what Purdue is going to be able to do going forward with Hazel. Good coach, but I think this year they're not going to be a contender.
And what about Illinois? Why isn't Illinois better as a program? That just doesn't make any sense to me. What do you think about Illinois?
Great question. They had some good years under Ron Zook, but could never sustain it. It's just been kind of the situation there. Went 2-10 last year, lost the last 8 games. So a team that are really struggling. This just doesn't have a lot of depth, a lot of talent. Tim Beckman is trying to rebuild that thing. Brought in a whole bunch of junior college guys. I think it's going to be another struggle this year for sure.
And what about the Minnesota Golden Gophers?
A team really kind of on the rise. They won 6 games last year. Jerry Kill and his whole staff have been there now 3 years. A very good, proven coaching staff. Getting better talent, better athletes on defense. Got a good young quarterback in Philip Nelson. This is a team I like to maybe do some things this year, maybe surprise some people, and I could definitely see them winning 7, maybe 8 games.
Last thing with you, Brian, we appreciate your time. You mentioned Derek Green. Who are some other star true freshmen that you think might have a shot to have an impact, and does it include a kid that Tennessee was in the mix for until National Signing Day at Ohio State in Von Bell?
Yeah, I think they really love what Von Bell can do for them. That was a huge recruiting win for them, and I think they're excited about him. The only problem is they have 2 senior safeties there and some really good cornerbacks, so I don't know how much he's going to play. I do think he will play some. I think some of the other freshmen for Ohio State will be worth watching. Dontrell Whistling, the freshman wide receiver, who's just a speedy guy, kind of maybe that Percy Harvin kind of guy for Ohio State, a guy definitely to keep an eye on. And then I think Michigan State's got 3 true freshman running backs. One of them's going to emerge as a starter there, and I think that they're going to have some big numbers because Michigan State loves to run the ball, and they gave Le'Veon Bell the ball about 35 times a game last year. So,
what about in the conference? Anyone else in the conference? I mean, I've seen some depth charts for Penn State with Christian Hackenberg as a starter. Is he going to start there?
It's possible. He's in a battle right now with Tyler Ferguson, a junior college guy. The problem with Hackenberg, he's not getting there until August, so he's not going to have a spring under his belt, a true freshman. But he definitely is the future there. Very good chance he wins that job. If not, he'll definitely play. Very talented guy. And that system, Bill O'Brien really knows how to coach quarterbacks. He showed last year, turning a former walk-on, Matt McGloin, into the top passer in the Big Ten.
You can get so much more on the Big Ten. Great work. Follow him on Twitter. It's at ESPN_Big Ten. And you spell that out, spell 10 out. It's BIGTEN at ESPN_Big Ten. And then on ESPN.com, video previews like you heard from Brian Bennett and doing a great job covering the Big Ten. Hey, Brian, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for doing it, and maybe we'll catch up with you here down the road.
I always enjoy talking football with you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Same here. That is Brian Bennett. Does a great job for ESPN.com, their Big Ten blogger.